today we've got Miss Cheryl Mlcoch out of Berthoud. Am I right? Berthoud, Colorado?
You got it.
Got the scarf on. I take it it's pretty chilly up there today.
Yeah, I knew you would ask that. Yeah, I think we're supposed to get snow today.
Snow. I don't remember that. I don't remember what that is.
And it was a little chilly in Tucson today.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a little cold.
Yeah.
What, about 95 or what?
No, yeah, it was in the 60s. Yeah.
You're high. How's that?
Wow,
You're high.
yeah, that's freezing for you guys.
So, yeah. So you're a professional counselor there that kind of specializes in grieving, suicide, and those natures. And that's kind of what we want to talk a little bit about today, and a little bit more of the seriousness side of it, and some of the things that we can kind of, if we can help somebody out here, that would be fantastic. You know, that may be grieving in silence or whatnot. But on that note, I kind of did a preliminary introduction, but go ahead and talk to us a little bit about yourself there, Cheryl, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. So I've been a licensed counselor for, I guess, technically about 13 years, but I started working with kids and youth when I was around 18, and I'm 48 now, so it's 49. Whoops, I just had a birthday. I don't want to say it. But yeah, a long time though, I've been working with youth in all different ways, mentoring, coaching, high school sports, and all kinds of stuff. But the last 15 or so years, it's really been working with ages 12 and up in the areas of trauma, grief and loss. It's that complicated grief, the murder, suicide, you know, the heavy stuff. And, you know, suicide, it just started to really become more in my life the last year that I moved here to Loveland. And I've been wanting to do a healing center for years, and I just couldn't find the right people. People just couldn't commit to what it takes to do it. Yeah. So I was really ready to give up. And then I happened to meet my friend Michelle, who had just lost her son Andy to suicide 2 years ago, September 1st. And we decided to work together. I was her counselor for like 2 sessions, and we immediately quit and said, let's do this. So now we're starting a nonprofit for suicidal teens. So I'm the co-founder and program director.
Good for you. Mm-hmm. Good for you. I'm sure you'd be able to help a lot of people out with that. And what kind of sparked it in the beginning for you to kind of go down this trail to?
Well, I think trauma has always just been on my heart, just because I'm a survivor of kind of an abnormal amount of traumas, as they say, 20 plus, I guess I'm at. So I never really cared what avenue it was going to take. I really just kind of go where I'm led to go. And suicide, when I came here to Loveland, was so rampant, is so high. And we kind of can see it now all over the United States, how high it is. And so I just knew in my heart that just pick this one and go, because it's a need, and people are losing their lives for obviously many different reasons. But the point is, we need help. And I know as a counselor, there's only so much I can do in that office. And I know I've helped a lot of people in my own way, but I've always been frustrated because it's just not enough. It's just not enough. People deserve it.
So can you talk to us more about Andy's house and kind of what the vision is for it?
Sure. So we definitely want to be out of the box. We want a ranch. We want about 10 acres of land, because we want to create experiences for these kids and their families, by the way. It's not just the kids, it's their families. Most people don't help the families very much. And so a lot of times when you work around trauma, you help the kid, but then they go back home and it just starts all over again. So that piece always gets ignored. Yeah. So we hope to have about 10 acres, and we want to do approaches. My idea for years has been to do art and music activities. We want to have animal assisted activities, horses and dogs and cats and all kinds of stuff. And we want to have horticulture, getting them out there in the dirt, gardening. There's lots of healing that can happen with that. And then we want to have groups, of course, but they're a little different than the traditional type groups that you have in counseling. We want to do stuff in the community with firefighters, policemen, any servicemen, definitely the military, do community activities. We really want to encompass it as far as the whole community goes. And then we'll have yoga, meditation, and then a whole spiritual element.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So I got a question or two that I just thought about. Are there any myths that can be dispelled about suicide, or some facts that may be out there that people may not be aware of that are kind of shocking?
Yeah, I would say some myths for sure are there's just, one main reason to it. A lot of people think, well, surely we can fix this. We were just meeting with city council here in Loveland, speaking to them, and I was shocked how clueless they were. They were looking for a quick fix. They really think when it comes to adults, it's one particular reason. With kids, it's because, of their phones and, all of that kind of stuff. And it's so deeper than that. There's so much to it, unfortunately. Obviously, if there was a quick fix, we would have figured it out by now. And a lot of people just don't want to get involved because it is work. And as far as stats, suicide is now considered an epidemic. It's in the top 10 leading causes of death. As far as Colorado, we're in the top 10 states. And here in Larimer County, where I live, we're in the top 10 counties. And for youth ages, well, it's 10 to 24, so young adults too, it is the second leading cause of death. So it's really unbelievable now. Truly unbelievable.
So have you being in this field, have you noticed any trends that you're very uncomfortable with?
Trends in general that the youth do, or
let's just say youth, because I know we can go down all these rabbit holes with different age groups, demographics, and all that. But let's just say youth, because I think there's a big highlight right now. I think on youth that are trying to transition into the real world. Let's say with you have social media, and then you have the real world, and this transition, trying to grasp both of them, and but.
Well, hopefully this answers your question, but I think there's just the biggest problem to me, if I were to pick, I guess, one towards the top, it's lack of connection. We've lost the connection with each other as humans. There's so many ways, like you and I are talking right now, obviously here in this great technology world, but if you and I were sitting across from each other, we would it'd feel different. It would be different. And we would have some deep conversations afterwards. And those are the connections that we're trying to create with people that are missing. We're just missing the human part of it. And we need to bring that back. And so many of my clients for years now have had horrible anxiety, horrible social skills. They don't want to talk on the phone. They just want to do it in a different way. Texting obviously is way more comfortable for people, or on Facebook, Instagram, those things. So we're just losing those authentic connections. Yeah.
Do you think that is, and I'm going to state, I'm 49, so my era is a little beyond yours, so just a little bit, yeah, but yeah, far beyond Jenny's here, so she's like youngin'. But you nailed something on the head there. You're talking about communication. How we communicate non-verbally, how we communicate in the person, how we can pick up different senses just by being, in front of another individual versus video or over a text. And, I remember the very first time I heard somebody saying that they broke up with their girlfriend via text. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is weak sauce, just have the guts to talk to her, or, to break up instead of just, over a text. That's the easy way out. And I think that it becomes that norm. It's easier to do that because they don't want to handle the ugly, fierce conversation.
It's easy.
You got it. And that's the bullying that's occurring now on all ages, not just kids, but the bullying, as you know, is huge. They don't want to face anybody anymore. And, deal with it one-on-one like we used to in school. We could beat each other up. We did whatever we had to do. I had a lot of meeting in the alley kind of things, with girls. But you work it out, and a lot of times I felt like I ended up becoming friends with them afterwards because we worked through that crap.
Yep.
But today, yeah, it's the opposite.
So Cheryl, I'm a mom of young kids. What advice would you give someone who is trying to raise kids in this era where there isn't a lot of meaningful communication and that connection is difficult right now?
That's a great question. I have a 16 and 13-year-old, by the way, and I think when it comes to kids, how old are yours?
9 and 7, both girls.
9 and 7. Yeah, you're in that prime age.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm going to scare you a little bit. But they tell you just in general, if you're not talking to your kids about pornography by the 3rd grade, you're going to miss out. If you're not talking to them about ways that they're going to be communicated with on their phones, whether chat rooms and things like that, where people are going to try to navigate their way into their lives. If you aren't teaching them about some of those basic things right off the bat, I guarantee you someone else will. So we have to.
Scary, you're right.
It is scary.
I think what resonates with me is what you said there. People navigating into their lives, not whether or not you're controlling on your end, but on the other end that they're purposely trying to navigate in. Oh.
Yeah, John and I mean, obviously, my husband, so he's the tech guru. So, we're blocking this, blocking that when they were young. And as soon as our kids went to school, came back, they were doing things that we didn't know about. We had educated them, and we always keep a very open dialogue with them. So if they do something wrong, we're not gonna beat them to death. We're not gonna, exercise them. We really just want to always keep that open communications so that they're not scared to tell us if they see something that they didn't really want to see, or do something they didn't really want to do. It wasn't about shaming them. It was about keeping that open communication so they knew it was safe to actually come and talk to us. Create that safety is really the main thing that I would tell you as a mother.
Thank you. What about when's a good age for kids to get phones? So my 9-year-old, yeah, I know, right? It's the $1 million question.
That's a good one.
My 9-year-old is on a gymnastics team, and she's the youngest. And she's the only one on the team who doesn't have a phone.
Oh, I'm sure I was waiting to hear that. I'm the only one who doesn't have a phone.
Yep, and it's definitely a topic of conversation. Not often anymore, because hopefully we've done a good job explaining to her our reasons why. But when do you find that kids are mature enough to get a phone? I know each kid is different, but our big things is it's very hard to have a conversation and understand the intent behind it when you're just texting with someone. And I think at 9, 10, you're just not mature enough for the subtext of a text message.
Well, obviously this is just my opinion, but I can also give you a little bit of, I guess, a type of research that they have found with this. It really does depend on the maturity of the child, I would say, for sure, and what kind of open relationship you have with that child as far as communication. Are they trustworthy? And if so, I know with our kids, it was kind of earned.
Yeah.
And that's really the way we looked at it. And we kind of started out with just a phone that we could just talk only, and they couldn't use it for anything else. Yeah. And then they worked their way up, to obviously having more options with the phone as trust built. Okay. And we always made sure we could see everything on that phone, and we could access it at any time, and we can grab it at any time. And then you take it away at night, put it in a basket at night, because that's really where the bad stuff tends to happen, is in the middle of the night when you're asleep.
Okay.
I said that since day one. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. I don't care where you're at in the world. Nothing.
Nothing. And I know it's a little different now with our 16-year-old. We've given him more freedom, but he's also built trust over time. And if that ever changed, hey, we would obviously revisit that. I don't know if that helps or makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So you've done, we could talk about this topic for days, probably. Days and days and days, and have a lot of different, even controversy potentially. There's something that you had mentioned earlier that you kind of have touched on also, is help people grieving with murder, suicide, on that. Can you touch a little bit on that? I know that's probably a very delicate situation, but I'd definitely like to hear your points on this.
Yeah. Well, it is tough. Everyone's going to grieve differently. My mom was murdered when I was 18, and just like suicide, people just didn't talk about it. So I was the kid that always had to hold it in. I had already dealt with numerous traumas from her alcoholism and the drugs and all of those things, some abuse. But when she was actually murdered, no one wanted to talk about it. They came to the funeral, but still there's no conversation. You don't really get into any conversation, and not much has really changed. That's why they come to counseling. There are support groups and those kind of things, which are wonderful, but they only go so far. I mean, at some point you get tired of hearing the same stories over and over, and people can get caught up in the grief and they can't really grow outside of it. And that's exactly why with Andy's House, we're trying to create those authentic connections and experiences with other people. So one, we can relate that we both have lived experience, and getting with others with lived experience, I think is vital. Sharing your story is vital, as long as you feel comfortable to do it, and you're in a safe place to do that mentally. But creating those authentic connections with people who get it, and having the conversation. Can we just say the S word, suicide? Can we say the M word, murder? It happens in this life. And I know none of us like it. I hated it. But going through it alone was 10 times worse. And I'm lucky to still be here because of what I went through. And that pile of trauma that I could never talk about piled up. And that's what led me to my attempt during my late 20s.
And you've gone through that, and I'm going to say survived that. What did you learn from that over the years?
I definitely learned that I matter, and that my relationship with myself is the most important thing. I was very dependent on everybody else to love me and prove that they love me and find love somewhere, and you get lost in that when you're in pain. And as a child, I think you deserve that. And that part, I learned to forgive myself. I always felt selfish that I wanted love and those kind of things. And I learned to be a very resilient kid, but I was very lonely. So I had to learn a couple things. I had to learn that I had to love me first and be proud of who I was and all that I endured and was able to survive and do. But then there was the other side. It was okay to want love and let that in. And there was many ways to get it. We kind of get demanding, I think, when we go through trauma. We need it a certain way. And I don't know, a lot of things happen in the traumatic mind. So it's different for everyone. So I don't want to assume everyone's the same.
Yeah.
You have to let love in from many different ways. And I did. And that's really what helped me survive.
You mentioned that this morning. We were just talking about that at a team meeting. Excuse me. 3 different things we were talking about, love, living, and basically a legacy. And when I say love, it's knowing how to love and knowing how to open up and accept it as well. And I think sometimes from a male perspective, that may sound like, you just dropped the man card or whatever, but ultimately, in all seriousness, I think, when you're able to be a wholesome person, you're allowing that. And I think that's something that a lot of people can really take some, I don't want to say advice, but maybe even counseling on, learn how, because
I absolutely love how you said that. That's actually kind of the order of things that I do in counseling. There's the awareness piece, acceptance, and then action. But the way you laid out the love, living, and legacy was exactly what I've done in my own life. I started with the love of myself first, letting love in from other people, and then creating those connections. And then I started to finally live more authentically. I wasn't living hypervigilantly all the time and worried and looking over my shoulder all the time. My body, I learned how to calm it. I had lots of tools, obviously. But now I'm in that stage where I've been working on this legacy for a long time, and I'm taking it to another level now with Andy's House. That's exactly
what
you nailed it.
Well, it's really cool about you, and I don't know if you know this, but I just love how you're transparent. A lot of your podcasts or a lot of the videos that you were doing, I was watching a lot of that stuff. You're very transparent and you're very personable. In other words, you are who you are. So that really resonates. And ultimately, I think that's why people may be attracted, because they are able to communicate with you because they know that you're there for them. So good for you on that. You've got a talent.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. It took a lot of years to have the guts to do that, because rejection when you share, and you do, even if you're trying from your heart, you get a lot of rejection out there. And sometimes it would make me want to go hide again. But hearing things and having moments like this where I know I've helped certain people, now you can't shut me up. But before, you know, it would definitely make me want to go hide in the closet again. So I
Well,
appreciate
I think you're right. There was a lot. There was something I was watching the other day. A lot of people, they fear feedback.
Yeah.
They say they want feedback, but they fear the feedback that they really think they might receive. And it's just like, for those that kind of get over it, like, you know what, I don't care what it is out there. You know?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely getting over it now. You're always going to be misunderstood. You're always going to say something that somebody else always wants a different word in there. Those high vocabulary people, well, you should have said this and it should have been that. It's a lot of shoulding on you, you know? And it can become obsessive and you can get so lost in it. But I just kind of stick to like what we're doing right now. Can we just have a conversation and just be where we are? We're all going to be at different levels in our growth. You know, just be flexible and apologize if you screw up, because your heart's not meaning to do that. You're just doing the best that you can with what you know.
Very true. Very true. Well, it's pretty impressive that you're changing a lot of lives. And I think that you're definitely the right person to do that.
Oh, thank you. I think you're doing it too, Bud, and I love what you're doing. I like how you branch out.
Yeah.
And it's not just all about real estate. You know, you are about those authentic relationships. You hire people that care and have that integrity. And you and I have the same philosophy. I could not imagine not centering myself around people, you know, like Jenny and all of that, because you really are going to grow. If you do, it's probably not going to be the way you want.
That's right. Yeah. What was it? You're the top 5 people you hang around with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the cool thing.
Well, everything.
We're able to choose that. So good.
Oh yeah. And that is the cool thing with social media, is you can be influenced by people that you don't know.
Oh, definitely. Oh, I love social media. And I think, you know, if you use it wisely, it's the best thing ever. I mean, look what we're doing right now. I mean, how great is this? You have your own show. I mean, you could never do that before. And there's such power in that. And I'm grateful you're picking these big topics, because I guarantee you someone watching this, it will save them, because it's about sharing our stories. Stories are power. That's what people realize, that most of all, that they're not alone. I mean, if I would have heard some of this when I was 28, there's no question I wouldn't have had that dark day in my house all alone. I would have taken a different route. But those things just weren't around, and it is now. So I can't thank you enough for at least, you know, being willing to visit the topic.
Well, I think also, you know, you're talking about it right now, but I think it's also having the acknowledgement to slow down a little bit too, you know, to listen to other people, you know.
Well, and I think to get rid of those stigmas, right? I mean, I feel like there's still a stigma around counseling and getting help. I don't know if you feel that way as well, but it feels like something very taboo that you don't talk about.
Yeah, and it's really sad, because honestly, at least my style is really no different than what we're doing right now. I don't sit over there and pretend I'm in a white coat and I'm better than you. You know, in fact, I really pull from that person and their strengths and what they want. And I don't try to put labels on them. Our society and insurance companies definitely want to do that. And that's just not my style at all. I really just want to have those authentic conversations, again, let them know they're not alone, and help them in whatever way I can to get through whatever it is they're, you know, being stuck with, or alone if they just feel alone, or whatever the case is. That's really all it is.
So what would be maybe some good books or something for someone to listen to, maybe grownups and adults who have experienced trauma and are trying to, you know, grieve through that? What are some good resources?
For trauma, I'm trying to think here off the top of my head. I could definitely send you a ton of
grief.
But
or even just grief, you know, some help with people that are in that.
Yeah, my brain. Let me get my brain here. I know Truth Heals by Deborah King is probably by far my most favorite. Truth Heals, she shares her own story, but she does it in a way that, I guess it's probably just because of the way that I am too. I take a wellness approach to life. So it's the mental, it's the physical, it's the spiritual, the emotional. You really do have to feed all those elements. And it really doesn't matter what you've gone through. If you feed all those areas just a little bit each and every day or each and every week, I promise you, your mind and your body will shift in such a way that I think it'll just blow your mind, to be honest. I have 2 autoimmune diseases, so I have a whole way of living that I really have to do just so I'm not bedridden. And Deborah King, in her book, she had cancer and was pretty much left for dead. And the same thing, she took a whole nother route, fed herself in all those different ways, and she reveals all those things that she did. And now she travels the world sharing her story. She's absolutely incredible. So that's one. And there's, again, I really like people with lived experience, obviously. I just think when we can learn from other people what all they've been through and all the different ways that they've tried and failed and didn't work, it lets us know, wow, okay, there are other ways, and what worked for you may not work for me, but at least I know I have choices. Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel stuck, like all they have is the ER, you know, if they're in trouble, or to just go to a counselor. We need more out there. We need more options, and that's what we're trying to create. But there are other people doing other things, but insurance won't cover it. So a lot of people can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to make it low cost, but a lot of people don't want to support it just yet because they're like, well, let me know when you're up and running, and then we'll support you. Yeah. And that's the battle that we all go through. But to me, there's many ways to heal, and you just have to find your path to healing.
Yeah, awesome. So is there anything that you want to touch on before we close out here that, and I want you, before we close out, we're going to get your contact information and all that other stuff so we can kind of get that out there for you as well. But is there something that, if you have any advice for anybody that's maybe suffering right now by something that maybe they're watching or they will watch?
Suicide is where I'm going to go because we're losing too many people. I'll go ahead and just stick with, I guess, youth and young adults for now, just because it is the second leading cause of death for them, and we're just losing them so fast. I think if we can get these kids and their families to want to, I guess, try to come together and know that there are other ways that they can get out of this dark night of the soul that's sort of happening in their home, that they have options. I think I don't know how to say this, but I really want them to know that they have other options and to look for them in their communities or start it up themselves or promote the places that are trying to do it. I notice on social media right now, we're so stuck in talking about it being the problem that we're not focused on the solutions. And everybody is looking for a certain solution as opposed to trying what's available. Again, there are a lot of people out there doing great things, but we're stuck in, we can only go to the ER, we can only go to counseling. That's simply not true, and it's just not enough. So there are many ways we can all get involved in our communities, and I think I'm just sort of putting a call to action, I guess, out there for people in their communities to get more involved in your community. You can create events, like we showed the S Word documentary. It's a new documentary that's out, and again, people with lived experience, and they really go into, many different facets around suicide. You can show that documentary right there in your community and just create a place to create dialogue and have it be a free event. Anything to get rid of that stigma. And you can definitely match up with people in your community, the counselors, whoever, and create events in your community right there. It's not hard. It's just putting yourself out there and being willing to do it.
And I think it's also very informative to basically educate yourself, even though you may not be in that state of mind either. So you can pick up on some of the behaviors or maybe even the I don't want to say symptoms of suicide, where people, may have a tendency where you can kind of identify it ahead of time and help out before it becomes an issue.
Well, I think the more educated people are, the more understanding they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. And I could actually touch on that too real quick. I know here in our community, and I know it's all over the United States, it's called Mental Health Matters. You can look that up online. but it is a free 8-hour course. And that maybe seems like a lot, but it really isn't. It's just one work day where you can learn a lot about mental health and things that you can do to help yourself as well as other people. And it's something that everybody should be trained on, and it's free. And all you have to do is look up your zip code and see where the closest class is. And I know in the rural areas, it's much harder, and that's always a whole other topic. But at least there are other resources now that people hadn't even thought about. I just did a course called Assist, which is a type of suicide prevention training that the layperson can get. Anyone can get it. And all of that prepares you for those moments. Because I guarantee you, they say for every suicide, 135 people are affected. So I know in some way, shape, or form, you are going to be affected by suicide.
Well, you're right.
Already. I'm assuming you have.
I don't think there's a human out there alive right now that hasn't been affected.
Exactly. So getting educated and knowing that there are those kind of free resources out there for you, please do them. Do them with your kids. They've got them for youth. They've got them for adults. They've got them for families. I mean, there's so much stuff out there now, but again, a lot of people either don't know about it or they see it on their email. I'll get back to it later.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think a lot of people probably think it doesn't apply to them.
Or I think it does, or it scares them to death.
I think you're right on the second half of that.
Yeah.
So if there's a good way for somebody to either contact you or your organization, what is that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, our website is www.andyshouse.live, L-I-V-E. Or you can email me, Cheryl at andyshouse.live.
Okay.
And yeah, those two ways for sure. At least you can get an idea more of what we're doing. You can email us from either way. And if you have any questions, you need resources, we've got some on the website, but I can always provide more books and things.
Does your website have like different places that kind of lead out to other websites too, to help them out there too?
We're getting there. Our website's still pretty new, but we're creating links now. We have one page that we've started to create those resources. We do have some, but we're going to create more links. We just got with a counseling center who's going to work with us. So they're going to be that clinical side. And then we're over here doing more of the experiential side. But now that we're combining, we're going to definitely create even more resources. So our website will look a lot different very soon.
Good.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to tell you again, thank you for doing what you do and changing the world one life at a time, girl. Seriously. There's certain people out there in the world and you're one of them. So thank you again for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, we're very excited to follow the progression of Andy's house. And
that's right.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yep. Next time we're in Denver, we'll meet up.
Yeah.
So, yes, indeed. And Denver, speaking of which, this little thing, let's not talk about their season right now, but yeah, I know. I can hear your husband just screaming and yelling in the background right now. It
was so bad yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. We'll get over that. We'll grieve. How's that?
Together. Yes, we will grieve together. Sounds great, Aaron. Thanks.
All right. Well, you take care of
Thanks,
yourself.
Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. And you have a fantastic day now.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Take care.